See, I agree that obviously genomes are not, static. We can see change, but how come every time, because I think this all, goes back to the limits argument. How come every time I see evolutionists, cite examples of, say, new information, new novel information, they're almost invariably citing evidence, obviously, of new traits. I exist that, but these traits are always caused by the corruption of existing information. Like, for example, the big ones that I find, Sam, and I'm almost done. I'll let you respond equally. Uh, I see adaptive immunity, examples of that. That would be changes in the order of certain, sets of genes. Or sickle cell anemia. We might, be able to agree to this, but, it confers a resistance to the malaria parasite, but it's really just producing deformed hemoglobin molecules, right? So, I mean, that's still a corruption of existing information. So I'm giving you examples because I figured your follow-up question would be, what do you mean by that? Another thing I see is aerobic citrate digestion by bacteria. I think that's with the E. coli experiment. If you actually look at that, that involves the loss of control of the normal anaerobic citrate digestion. So that's still a corruption of the existing information. How are you going to get rich by losing money? How are you going to get that bacteria to turn to a whale through billions of years of evolutionary processes?
Well, I think the issue here is that you, and I'm not saying this to be insulting, but you have an extremely myopic view of what the literature actually says. There are examples of traits where you have, actually a lot of examples of what's called neofunctionalization, where you have a gene duplication, that gene is subsequently mutated, and you have a gene with a new function. So a great example is snake venom. Like, there was an ancient gene, I believe it's in the phospholipase C family, and it got duplicated, and it eventually got duplicated a few times and became the snake venom family proteins, right? That's just one example. Another example would be, antifreeze proteins in Arctic fish, eel pouts.
Yeah, that's a big one. I've heard that.
These are all, these aren't losses of information. This is actually increase in information and an adaptive trait. So I think basing examples off of, you seem to be basing your stance off of examples that don't fit the trend, which is fine enough, but there are examples that do fit the trend.
If you actually look at the duplications, though, and I don't know if we can agree with this, they're just duplicating existing genetic information, and then the mutations, they're altering the existing genetic information, whether duplicated or original. Like, if I give you a copy of a book, and then I give you another copy of that same book, and in that second copy, I take a marker and I start marking out some of the letters, making different changes. Now all I have is a messed up copy of the original book. So there's not really any novel and meaningful information, because the size of the genome, that doesn't really tell us how much information content is in the genome. So I see genetic or gene duplications. I don't see that as a very convincing mechanism for adding new novel information. So I think genetic entropy, I think that information degradation we see, I still think that applies, Sam. Go ahead.
Well,